Have you ever seen some of those videos, like the extremely flexible cat rig that can kind of just move all its pieces around, and then it can kind of bring in and out different limbs or eyes? And have you ever wondered how they do that? How to make a rig that you can make its eye completely movable, completely controllable, while it looks like it's still part of the body? Well, this isn't a perfect way of doing it, but it's very close to what they're doing, and it's a very good way of starting to figure out the steps. How this works is that you have your moving object, in this case the eye, you have a body, and you have the special in-between piece. This is what makes everything work. In this case, it's my eyelid right here. It's a separate mesh, and you mold it so that it looks like it's connected to both pieces inside the main piece and connected to the moving piece. In this case, it's the eye. And how this works is that you work with joints and with added influence and skin weights. So let's get started with the tutorial. For this, I'm going to be making a simple eye rig. I'm using an eye rig that I made in a different video. You can go watch that so you can see how this was made. And now we're just going to add onto it so we can make the next step. Like I mentioned before as well, we have the movable object, which would be our eye. We have the body, which technically is the head, and we have the in-between, which in this case will be the eyelid. So let's go ahead and make those first really quick. Okay, so that's just really fast, my weird little body. Now the important thing is the eyelid. So just really quick, I made this eyelid, and it looks like it's covering the eye just fine. But what we need, and the important part, is that we actually need the eyelid to look like this on the outside, but we need it to reach all the way inside to the center of the body, which in my case is just at the center of the grid. Using some soft select, I'm just going to go ahead and take care of that. I will add that the reason that the eyelid looks so chopped up and geometric and it looks like it's cutting into the eye, it's because it's in rough display mode on your keyboard. That would be key number 1. The way to change this and to make it look nicer is if you put it in smooth display. You can press the key 3 or you can just smooth it out. So there we have our eyelid. It doesn't look perfect because of the mesh itself. Hopefully you've molded it a little better, but as you can see on the inside it actually stretches and reaches all the way here to the center of the body. And that's because when it moves around you want it to stay connected inside the head, inside the body. So since this is my head, I'm going to go ahead and name it really quick to the head. This is our nice little eyelid right here. Okay, we're finished. Let's go ahead and just erase history and freeze the transformations. The next step is just really quick. We're going to want to duplicate the eyelid and set it aside. That's something we'll use for later. Now we're going to go ahead and create the joints. So we're going to go to skeleton, create joints. The first joint, I'm going to put it here on the grid, and that's just going to be our base joint. It's just going to be so we can work with this rig and move it around. And the next joint, and this is the important joint, is going to be here inside the body, inside the head. Ideally, you've already created your character. You have the basic rig created, and that's just going to be the head joint inside there. That's going to be where the eyelids connect to. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and jump to skinning everything. But for this, especially for the eyelid itself, I'm going to go ahead and do something a little bit different. Usually when you go to bind skin, it's set to just joint hierarchy. So you'll select the joint and it's going to select all the joints that are under that as well. I don't actually want that because I don't want this base joint to have any influence over the eyelid. So in my bind skin options, I'm going to go to select the joints. So I'm going to go ahead and select my joint. I'm going to select my eyelid and I'm going to hit apply. And now this joint has control over that. Next step, I'm going to select my base joint, my body, hit apply, and now last thing, I'm going to go ahead and select make a big control, and I'm going to parent constrain the joint so that when I move this, everything else moves with it. The next step is we're going to add influence from the eye to the eyelid, and this is the most important part. This is what makes it work. So we're going to select the eye, we're going to select the eyelid, and we're going to go to skin, and all the way down to edit influences. I'm going to open up the options for you. The important thing here with this is that we're going to add influence from the eye to the eyelid, and it's basically kind of work like a joint. You know that it has the influence on it and it controls a certain amount of it. If we want to do this, if we want to add the influence, we actually have to first have our mesh skinned to a joint. We already took care of that, but if for some reason you ever want to do this, be sure to first skin it to a joint. So I'm going to select my eye, eyelid, and add the influence. So now, when I move my eye around, the eyelid moves around with it. And I can just go ahead and move this around. And that's actually pretty much done. You can move it around the body, and it looks like it looks like the eyelid is connected to the eye, but still constrained. Just because it can move independently, make sure that you, when you're animating it, you keep it close to the body, so it looks like it's still connected inside. And of course, you can also just stretch it out. So really, the basics here are done. You get the idea. You can use a your moving mesh, body, and then in between to hide the differences between those two. You can have a joint and have influence from the moving object into the in-between, and it basically looks like those two are, well, those pieces are all working together. For an extra effect, what I like doing is I like adding just a teensy bit of influence from the eye onto the body, but that only works if you're staying in that area of the body. The next step that I'm going to be working on is just adding a little bit of expression to the eyelid. We're going to do that with blend shapes. Ideally, I should have done this, and I'm really sorry. Ideally, when you're working with blend shapes, you have a duplicate of all the things that you need. Here, what I should have done and what you should do is when you duplicate the eyelids, you also duplicate the eye, so that it's right there in center with the eyelid. So let's try to get that all together here. I'm going to duplicate the eyelid, and I'm going to, since I'm working with just all on the grid, I can just snap to grid, and it works pretty well. So I'll speed through this, but you can see how I'm just kind of molding this around so that it looks like the eyelid itself is moving a little bit. Okay, so again, not perfect. I just want it to look like the eyelid is either moving up or down. So I'm going to select the eyelids, and I'm going to select my main eyelid. I'm going to go to Deform, and I'm going to hit Blend Shape. So now you can see that the eye has all these eyelids, and you can move it around. You can select this, and you can make it look around. Whoops. Hide those away for now. Yeah, you can make it look around, and it still looks kind of bored and annoyed. We can make this look around, and it still keeps that expression from the blend shape. Let's go ahead and set that back to 0. Okay, and I've come back just to add a little bit of a detail here. If you want, you can actually also add a connection between the eye control and the blend shapes, so you can control that. And this is just separate, but we'll go ahead and do it really quick. You're going to want to go to the node editor. You want to open it up. I'll show that right now. You're going to go to the control, edit, add attribute, and we're going to add eyelid. I'm going to give it a value of 0 to 10, and we're doing just a float, and lower eyelid. and we're going to grab our node editor, bring it into screen, and we're going to grab this and throw it on here. But we actually want to select the blend shape, and that's what we need. So there we are. Here is the blend shape, here is our control. And you'll notice that the control has the lower eyelid and upper eyelid. And it's my fault for putting names wrong, so let's go ahead and fix that really quick. There we go. Okay. Now what we're going to do is just going to put input from this, and it connected to the weight. You can do it like this, just really quick. Let's make sure, let's see which one is the lower eyelid. Okay, so lower eyelid is number 2, upper eyelid is number 1. The thing is, here we put it from 0 to 10, and in the blend shape, it's just 1 to 0. So what's gonna happen is, if we're gonna go with the upper eyelid, it's gonna go 0 to 10, and it's gonna really push that. So instead, what you want to do is, let's go here and let's create a multiply divide. We're gonna set, well, we're gonna put our inputs. Okay, and that's gonna be from input 1, and then we're actually gonna put our input 2 to 10, and we're gonna set it to divide. And then we're just gonna go ahead and put the outputs. So now, when I control the upper eyelid, it just goes 0 to 10, because it's dividing my value by 10. And it's doing the same for the lower eyelid. Okay, and that's just how you add a little bit of extra control for that. That's how you make a deformable independent expressive eye.